Good morning, Tobago. Good morning to Tobagonians abroad. Good morning, by extension, to the entire nation, Trinidad and Tobago, and those in the diaspora and the global community that has been paying attention to our management of the oil spill here in Tobago. Uh, we have been at this since the 7th of February, and this is part of our regular weekly briefing, and we try to do at least 2 of these per week so as to ensure we keep you updated on all that's happening in this space and how the cleanup activities are developing. This morning, we want to start differently. We have a very rigid system that we utilize to ensure that we get the deliverables that we need. And I'll give you some insight into how that works. So we have Director Stewart of T.H.A, and he plays the coordinating role for all of the several agencies and contractors and volunteers and everyone in this space. As Chief Secretary and as the Secretary with responsibility under whose division T.H.A falls, I meet daily on evenings for a debriefing session. At that debriefing session, we get reports on what happened during the day, what the challenges are, and we try to see if we can fix those challenges on time for the next day or sometimes during the night itself. We have several moving parts. I did point out to you that we have Ministry of Energy here, Heritage is here, and we have international companies such as OSRL here. We have the tankers, International Tanker Owners Pollution Federation Limited here. And we also have other international players who are here doing monitoring, quality assurance, ensuring that we're doing the best by the environment. We are utilizing best practices, best models to ensure that this thing works out safely. One of the persons we have working with us in this space is Lieutenant Colonel Hills. Mr. Hills is our operations chief. And as operations chief, daily, and except for today, because he's here for a press briefing, daily he will meet with representatives from the contractors around 10 in the morning, and they go through all the activities that they are to do for that day. And it allows us to even fine-tune in terms of the troubleshooting that will happen even as the day progresses. And so I asked Mr. Hills to start us off with a presentation on where we are at right now, what's happening, what happened during the week, and what's going to happen subsequently. So I want to invite Mr. Hills. He will come to the center. He will make a presentation. For those who are looking at the feed live, you will get to see the corresponding photos, graphs, and so on that he will show. Those who are here in person, we will provide the presentation to you, so you will have the actual presentation that you can refer to as well. All right, so let's invite Mr. Hills, who will join us at this time and do this presentation. That's Lieutenant Colonel Hills.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Secretary. Good morning again to all present and all observing. I would want to start the presentation with an overview. So the overview had generally been given by the Chief Secretary. We would all know that we would have been monitoring this situation as from the 7th of February based on this Gulf Stream incident, and it would have affected Tobago, primarily coastline and the marine ecosystems. They saw the disruption of school at one point, and some roadway and livelihood of citizens have been affected. The fisher folk, etc., who would have been impacted by the oil spill within the agency. The activation of the Tobago Oil Spill Contingency Plan and the Tobago Emergency Operations Center have been fully activated. Next slide. So just to give you an overview of the majority of areas contaminated, which would be focused around the southeastern sector of the the Tobago coastline, ranging from as far as Scarborough all the way down to Sandy Point, highlighted in the diagram shown on the screen at this point in time. Next slide. This slide will highlight the eco areas that are severely affected most by the impact of the spill within the area. And as we continue to the next slide, I would want to start now. Next slide. So these are the areas that we are operating in. As you will see the overview of our Joint Operations Center at Scarborough to the left. We have the Lambo, which was initially a Joint Operations Center. As we transition, will now be known as a command post. And then there's what we'll consider ground zero, the Cove and the Canoe Bay area, which is just off the wreckage at that area there down at Cove on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. With regards to personnel operating in the field, there's a combination of people daily, totaling, as you would see, and we've reached now the 300 mark of persons operating daily in the field that we have. We have between 20 to 30 T.M.A and T.H.A officials operating. ODPM would have brought from Trinidad and Tobago sometime between 3, and we'll have an influx again over the weekend, ranging up to 25 persons. We'll have volunteers who would have come in to support, ranging between 130 to 150 daily, being monitored by the T.M.A and the T.H.A personnel. And then contractors who would have brought on up to Tobago to support staff members, between 40 to 50, ranging across the contractors identified on the list here. And then they would have trained some specific volunteers, 60 to 90 of them on a daily basis, again reaching up to 300 persons operating in our space to provide the support to the oil spill. We have a number of equipment that would have been brought onto the island, backhoes, up to 9 backhoes, dump trucks of various sizes, up to 8 dump trucks, frac tanks, which is used to collect the spill material, tankers with pumps to extract the material at particular areas, excavators, as well as some marine vessels as we go into the operations that we'll be doing both on land and on shore. The operations have 3 main focal points: the containment and collection in the water and at the water courses. We have beachfront and beach line and shorefront cleanup, and then we transitioning into a large-scale amount of salvaging at the vessel site itself. Next slide. So again, we'll have containment and collection areas, as you'll see in the different areas. We have booms installed to support this containment in Scarborough, Lambo, at Cove and Canoe Bay, and at Sandy Point. We also have booms at the water courses in Scarborough and Lambo identified so that we could start the cleanup and collection. Along the beach line and shorefront, we would see priority areas in Scarborough, at the port, and around the school area, Scarborough Secondary, in Lambo, the fishing village, and the school area in Lambo. Magdalena Beach Resort, we'll have north and south of the pool, and the Canoe Bay and Cove area along the coastline. There was a methodology where we used a lot of equipment at first, and we're now transitioning based on the heavy material being removed with the mechanical equipment to some more manual labor in some collection and disposal of material. Thus far, we've collected, as you would have seen listed here, Heritage, the main collection entity, would have reported over 20,000 barrels of liquid waste collected and some solid waste of 1,500 cubic yards. Tiger Tanks would have reported 1,300 barrels and over 2,000 cubic meters of solid waste. Just to make a point on the waste collection, these items have been collected at the frac tanks, which are located at both Lambo area and in the Cove area, as well as some of the material are being taken to the Studley Park for collection for subsequent disposal. Salvaging of the vessel at the crash site in Cove, we have TNT Salvage as contracted by the Ministry of Energy, now has commenced operations. They've done some surveys to ensure that they identify the depth of the areas around the vessel to operate, and some aerial surveys to try and identify any leaking fluid from the vessel. They've secured some anchors to the vessel and will try to commence some diving so that they can ascertain if and how much quantity of liquid remains in the vessel at this point in time. There's a boom that was being used to collect leaking fluid from the vessel. We need to have that removed so that TNT Salvage can commence operations within that area. Next slide. As we look forward, we want to continue the cleanup throughout. We want to transition this process from the mechanical, based on the quantity of material found, to a more manual collection system. We want to start some collection of the fluid that we identified out at sea, and TNT Salvage has bought a Novi Inac system, which will assist in that. And then we want to also develop a really strong waste management plan, which, based on our advice from some of our international partners, can linger on as a plan that could go on for some time thereafter the cleanup is completed, where we have frac tanks at this point in time and Studley Park, but we also have to consider some long-term disposal of the waste that would have been collected. I want to thank you for your attention, and we'll transition back to the Chief Sec and company for the continuation of our...
Thank you very much. Just to point out, just one typo in the slide. It should be NOFI, N-O-F-I, as opposed to N-O-V-I system. So if you want to Google it, it will be N-O-F-I system, and you'll be able to see what it looks like, how it works. YouTube has wonderful videos of how that system is really practical for the type of space we have here in terms of sea and currents and all of that. I want to now transition to Director Stewart, who could give some further updates before I come to Deputy Chief Secretary Dr. B as well, and then we'll take some questions.
Now, one of the things that I recognize based on the information that we have so far is that we are into day 24. This is the 24th day. And in relation to some of the discussions we've been having with some of our partners, you know, we would have indicated that Petrobras is actually here on the ground. And we would have pointed out in a previous interview that Petrobras, which is a company or a body of people out of Brazil, a technical team out of Brazil, they would have been impacted in a similar way, more intense. But the similarity spoke to the issue of what some may describe as a ghost boat or vessel. So in 2019, they were impacted, and they would have pointed out to us, the team, that this event that you are managing, Mr. Stewart, prepare for a marathon. Chief, we are preparing for a marathon. And I just want to echo that to the rest of the population at large, you know, that this is a very long haul. They also indicated to me that it is something like 6 to 8 months in the emergency phase. And when you look at the process towards waste management, try to prepare for anything a year and a half or so, 18 months. With that being said, it allows us to start looking at critical areas, such as setting up what is called a project management team. So you will be hearing more about that project management team as we speak. That team is currently meeting to discuss the construct of what that may look like in the near future, based on what we envision going forward this thing will look like. We have had challenges that we are acquainted with our landfill. We know that space has been utilized, and we understand that it requires careful management. And therefore, one of the major pillars of this entire operation will be that of waste management, where our landfill and what do we do with the extract from the hydrocarbons, which is mixed with other fuel or liquids. So that liquid waste, we recognize it to be, some people describe it as liquid gold, where it can be a number of things that can be done to it. So therefore, the waste management plan will take on some of those issues as we go forward. It's important to even understand, because I know the question may pop up in terms of the work of the heritage, the company that is dealing with this cleanup on the ground. But I also want to highlight that this Novi current blaster is really the type of equipment that is needed if we are to mitigate the spread to other shorelines And so I really want to thank the Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries for the timely input. That has made my sleep a little better in that we are in a situation where we know that all of the technical and also mechanical aids that are necessary for the cleanup is at hand. You will be aware that we would have learned that this thing has spread to over 800 kilometers from our shoreline, and therefore that speaks volume. There's a possibility that it could reach other territories, and the purpose of engaging such equipment is to mitigate and to prevent and to even clean up in response to the spill that is now taking place. So I just want to pause here and allow, I know there are some other juicy subjects that can be talked about, so I'll rest my voice here now, Chief.
Thank you very much, Director Stewart. I'll turn to Deputy Chief Secretary, who is leading at this time in terms of the relief effort to those most affected by this spill, given that her division has a department that treats with social protection. So, Dr. B. Israel.
Certainly, thank you, Chief. Now that, as the director indicated, that we are 24 days into it, the Tobago House of Assembly is now able to transition from the initial phases, which really included the let us figure out where we are, let us do as much cleanup as possible. And now we are transitioning to the phase where we can think about the social support and the relief that we are providing to the individuals who are directly affected by this. Following the meeting that we had with the fisher folk and those stakeholders associated with the beaches at Lambo and Scarborough earlier this week, it is a pleasure to report that this morning we have completed the distribution of 100 vouchers to those who have been affected. That happened right across the street at the food hub. We recognize that in that process, because it's a process that is a dynamic one, there were a few individuals who showed up who were not captured on any of the lists that we had before, and that is fine. My officers were instructed to collect their information. We will collate that information and we will provide that additional support to those individuals possibly next week, as soon as we are able to do that. Looking at the lists that we have, those who we were able to distribute to, and then determine how many more vouchers we need to provide that additional support to those who are affected. It's important to know that, when we talk about stakeholders, we're not just talking about the fisher folk, meaning the men and women who go out on the vessels to fish, but we're talking about a relatively wide group of stakeholders. That includes the vendors, meaning those who would buy from those fishermen, fisher folk, and then sell it on their own. We're also talking about the other folks who help them around, so the younger people who help with the scaling and the cleaning and that kind of thing. But we're also talking about individuals, because I saw a list this morning that included young men who are catching crab, and that is part of their industry. We're talking about individuals who may have businesses close to where the fishermen work, so they may have a little shop there, and because we had to close the beach, because we had to remove people from that area specifically, their business was affected. So it's really a very wide range. At the end of it, we will provide a comprehensive report on the full number of people we've provided support to and the categories, so that we have that well documented, and we will continue to provide whatever additional support is needed from the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection in particular, but from the Tobago House of Assembly on a broader scale.
Thank you, Dr. Faith. And let me add a few bits more to that. We have the Division of Food Security, in particular through Secretary Pantin and Assistant Secretary Tate. They have officers who are working with the fisher folk directly to quantify what their loss has been. We're talking about what the impact has been on engines, what the impact has been on boats, what the impact has been on nets, what the impact has been on anchors, what the impact has been on fish stock. They are quantifying those So we will be able to provide relief in those areas. Hopefully by next week we will begin to get what those numbers will look like, because all of those things have to be factored into the costs of this entire operation, not just the cleanup effort, but the industries and the people affected and how we provide relief for them. That's absolutely critical. At this time, let me entertain any questions from members of the media, both present and those online. Those online can show by raise of virtual hands, and those in the room, just indicate.
To know, Mr.
Sure.
Chief Secretary, to the tune of how much in terms of the vouchers distributed this morning?
Certainly. So each voucher was $1,000. So that was 100 vouchers worth $1,000 each.
And the reason why vouchers were done as opposed to necessarily giving them hampers is because the needs vary based on the family. And we know some families may have young children and they may need stuff from the grocery specific to that need. Some might have elderly in their homes and they may have a different set of needs. And so it's really to give those fisher folk and those directly affected the opportunity to go into the supermarket and put food on their table. 24 days is almost a month. Generally, these families will be were able to make their groceries on a monthly basis, generally. And so we're looking at ensuring that we can, in fact, provide that support for them in the interim.
I know we have some scattered showers these days. I know you were praying for the rains not to come before, but are the booms still in place?
Yes, the booms are still in place. They are still holding. Scattered showers are fine. What we call the passing cloud, that's fine. What we don't want is extensive rainfall. So yes, having a scattering of showers here and there, that's a blessing that we can thank God for. What we don't want is an abundance of that blessing. So we hope that it remains as dry now, as it remains dry at least for the next 2 months or so. That will be good. And I see Director Stewart looking at the radar to see how many of those scatter showers we have floating by. We will have a few of those, but we will be mostly sunny.
Yes, the vouchers that are being given out, you mentioned were given out. You mentioned a 6 to 8 month period, for that matter, maybe longer. How long will the voucher program keep going to individuals?
Well, that is to be decided. We will provide the relief so long as the relief is needed. I indicated at the last press briefing, although the rigid cleanup activity should take between 6 to 9 months, we want to get practical use back to most of our areas in a much shorter period than that. Why we need 6 to 9 months? Because there are fine cleaning and detailed cleaning that the average person will not see, will not pay attention to. That will take us some time. We have some delicate areas such as the Petitro Lagoon, for example, the cleaning for which is different from what we do along the beach. We can't just go in there with the gully suckers and drop it in the lagoon and suck out all that's there. That has to be like literally manual and very fine cleaning to protect the ecosystems there. That's why it will take so long. But we could hazard a guess that long before the 6 month period, that the fisher folk in the Lambo area in particular, and Scarborough certainly, will regain full access to their waterfront. So the relief insofar as food vouchers, we don't believe there will be a need for it all the way to 6 months. But there will be need for other forms of relief. And that's why I spoke about the fact that we have the field officers from food security doing the necessary checks. because we know for some fisher folk, like for example, I've spoken to two of the fishermen whose engines are not starting right now. And that's because it pulled up the oily substance, and so it's just not starting. And so mechanics have to come in, and we have already given a commitment that, we will take care of that mechanic bill and trying to coordinate that. So the types of relief will vary across the coming weeks and months, but we will essentially provide whatever relief is needed so as to ensure that we safeguard the industry and ensure that those that are adversely affected are able to continue to ply their trade after this.
When the final cost is accessed, would the perpetrators be liable for the entire cost? Is there any insurance that covers some of that cost?
Well, there is insurance that the countries are part of. I can't immediately speak to what are the terms and conditions of our policy as a country, but I've already made it clear that this Tobago House of Assembly is intent on ensuring that we take action against those that are culpable in the matter. I was heartened when I heard the Prime Minister indicating that he has some clue as to who might be responsible. So I was heartened when I heard that from a press briefing he did about 2 days ago. And so it means that we might be getting closer to some discovery of who or what is behind all of this. And I think that will be quite interesting. And certainly we are doing our own investigations on our end.
The material that we sucking up on the surface, is there any danger of that oil getting below the surface and continuing to cause long-term problems with the fisheries and so on?
No, because the nature of oil itself is that it generally doesn't mix with other liquid substances and generally floats above other liquid substances. And so it will remain on the surface of the water, perhaps on the sand, on the beach, and we are trying to ensure that the material does not get too heavy to sink to the seafloor. And that's why we have not used in the ocean, for example, products such as the CanSorb. Because if we had used the CanSorb in the ocean, then that will create weight to the matter and it will sink. We only use the CanSorb on the shoreline, on the sand, on the rocks, on hard surfaces that we could easily scrape that up thereafter. So we are very, very careful to use international best practices to ensure that we don't have any of the matter remaining. In terms of what does the science say this does to our health, I have not had the privilege of any extensive scientific research that shows that the presence of the matter itself, just being close to it itself, causes any serious or adverse health risk. But absolutely, we continue to operate in the abundance of caution. We continue to use PPEs. We continue to take all measures to ensure that those that are working in and around this space don't develop allergic reactions to the substance, and doing all that's necessary to ensure health and safety is paramount.
You spoke about the post-cleanup operations and the attempt to restore beaches and so on. But we look at the oil that the spill had bought, and I wonder if households that and our water courses that people drainage system run into, if that is being looked at to see what effluent we are putting into our waterways and how that could continue to affect the fisheries and the seas as well.
Well, that is always looked at. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that the Department of Natural Resources and the Environment, every single month, they do water quality testing at our beaches, because this is a tourism-based island. And in fact, one of the things I insisted on was additional tests so that we can ensure that all of our waterways that are used for recreation, firstly, recreation and entertainment, that they are above international standards, when it comes to being safe for people to bathing and use them. In terms of the drains and so on, and the runoff from daily usage outside of this oily substance, we do have a public health department, and they do those regular checks to ensure that people are managing and disposing of their waste in the most responsible manner. And that's why you saw some time ago last year, you saw restaurants, for example, were getting citations and were being shut down. I received the irate calls from some people because their businesses were being impacted. And that's really just public health doing their work to ensure that all of these things are being managed. Because if we are to speak about our island being an environmentally safe island, then we also have to look at personal responsibility. And that personal responsibility, and I've spoken about this before, goes down to whether or not we are going to toss the carry bottle out of the car window while we are driving home, or toss the KFC box through the window into the nearby bushes. It goes all the way to that extreme. So beyond the cleanup activities we are doing with the bunker fuel that has washed our shores, this is a reminder that every single one of us must become champions of the environment and must do our part in keeping a very clean scene.
Thank you.
So if no other questions, I wish to thank you all. Our next press conference will be perhaps on Monday, thereabout. The announcement will be made from the office of the Chief Secretary, and we will ensure that we get through this period. I must say this, that even while we are here, a team from Tobago is preparing to go to Germany, to ITB in Germany. I know one of the concerns that they have asked us to prepare for out there in Germany is what's the impact of all of this on scuba diving, which is one of our most important niche products or niche offerings within the tourism industry here in Tobago. And because people out of excitement, I think, carried some of the news the wrong way, out of context, did not give what was totally truthful. And for a period, some thought that it was the whole island affected and no beach was bathable and so on. And so we have a team that's going, led by Secretary Boris. I was supposed to be on that team because this was being planned for a while now. But I canceled. I canceled because I think this was more important to treat with. And but certainly no effort is being spared to ensure that as we market the island, that we ensure that we carry the good news, that we have been able to contain this within a 15-kilometer radius, that we have been able to protect our sacred dive sites, and that Tobago is still open. We still have beautiful beaches, the best certainly in the country. I see that our neighbors in Trinidad were blessed with some clear waters in recent days because the Atlantic Ocean was pretty nice in recent days, but that's only for a few days. We have all wrong, 24/7, 365 days, and if it's a leap year like this year, 366 days of excellent bathing beaches, a good reefs to go diving at. And one of the strategies that I will employ is that I will call some of those same TikTokers and so on, to come to the table and ensure that they are taken around so that they can help carry the message that this space is just open and still very beautiful. And I hope Tobagonians recognize how easy it is to lose a paradise, that in just one incident, in one instance, that which we know as paradise can be lost. And so when we stand up for Tobago, and whether it's standing for autonomy, whether it is standing for what we should get from the budget, whether it is standing for Tobago's culture and so on, when we stand up for Tobago, we must recognize that the protection of the island must be one whereby we are able to treat with each individual Tobagonian having a responsibility towards protecting Tobago. Tobago is yours. So thank you for joining us in this fight. And I cannot end by saying that we are still accepting donations, such as PPE, water, and those simple supplies that you may take for granted. We can't have enough cases of water because we go through quite a lot of those daily. Because as you would imagine, working in this substance, in this scorching sun, requires a lot of hydration. So we continue to accept those donations, and we thank those who have given contributions to PPEs, and that includes masks, respirators, gloves,
boots,
even,
and the suit.
Yes, and the hazard suits, yes.
That's right. So we really appreciate that.
So we appreciate those that have given, and we are in fact open to receiving other donations. The Joint Operations Center is located down at Scarborough, opposite the revetment at the junction to Smithfield, and you can go there at any time. There is open from as early as 6, 7 in the morning, and staff is there till very, very late into the night. So just drop by anytime, and we welcome those donations. And I must make a plug for Tobagonians living abroad. Some of you have reached out. Some of you have been donating, and through T.H.A. I want to thank you for remembering that, notwithstanding the fact that you don't live in Tobago, nor have careers in Tobago, that Tobago is still very much your home, and we really appreciate and recognize your contributions. You can send emails to planning.thema@tha.gov.tt. That's planning.thema@tha.gov.tt. You can send emails with inquiries or with suggestions or with offers, and we will take it from there. Thank you all very, very much. Please have a safe weekend. Enjoy the weekend, and God's richest blessings.